Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is one of my dear brothers and friends. He goes by Paul Kiatswin. Paul, it's such an honor to have you on, man. Welcome on.
Thanks for having me, Peter. I'm excited to spend this time with you.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Paul is a servant of the people. He's a walker on the red road. He's been a chiropractor for 25 years and does animal chiropractic as well. And some of the topics we may cover today are Paul's awakening path and journey, Sundance, the red road, chiropractic, and how men show up in the world. So I'm stoked to dive into it, brother. Um, would you be open to sharing how the awakening journey started for you?
Yeah, definitely. The For me, trying to go into chronological order, it's probably be a little bit difficult just because now I recognize in my awakening how much life is a nonlinear process,
Hmm.
and as I look back at my life and I attempt to pinpoint that one moment, probably the start of the awakening, the process of it happened in 1996. I had come across my very first elder. He's Cherokee. His name is Yellow Horseman, he who walks in the four sacred directions. And
Mm.
he introduced me to the sweat lodge, to the Inipi sweat lodge ceremony. And I remember at the time when I did that ceremony, I didn't really think much of it. Like I was like, "Wow, what are we doing here?" And it's kind of hot, and I'm sweating, and it was like all the mundane things. And now looking back at, it, I realized how much I was like my spiritual body really was just in its infancy. It was just like a little baby, and it didn't understand how it was just crawling. It wasn't even walking. And
Hmm.
so to be put into the ceremony, uh, there was the ignition, but it wasn't a full blown whoa. I didn't realize that this is what the spirit world looks like, or what spirits look like, or what prayer looks like. Um, now almost 25, 26 years later, um, that process of connection with the spiritual realm is so much more tangible, and it's because of my maturity in that journey.
Hmm.
So I would say, for example, in this last Sundance that I completed, I had such a clear experience of the spirit world. So a
Hmm.
lot of the dancers, a lot of the veteran dancers that I was with would say, you like the third day is typically when your mind starts letting go and you really start stepping into this altered state of being and experiencing the world other than the physical world that we experience with our open eyes on a daily basis. And that being said, even still now, it's so much easier for me to tap into that realm, even in a physically awakened state. Um, and so the Sundance this last year has been even more of a cracking open, an uncovering of the eyes, the spiritual eyes, so that I could see what the world looks like beyond the physical, behind the physical world.
Like pulling back
Um,
a curtain.
it really is like pulling back a curtain.
Hmm.
Yeah, like in the dance, for example, I think it was actually the second day, and there was a dancer that came in. I'm going to purposely be really general with my description of these things, just so that I'm respecting people's experience and who they are. So we had a dancer come in who started. So we have 4 days of dance for those who don't know, and they came in on the second day, which is acceptable. And we're in line. There's the women dancers are in front of us. We're behind them, and one of the dancers collapse. And prior to that person collapsing, I experienced a sensation of something crossing my path, like from left to right, and it was going right by that person.
Oh gosh, I'm getting chills as you're talking about it.
And with my eye, because so I have my eyes closed because I'm just like in my prayer, I'm just focusing. and I feel the sensation. It's almost as if literally a physical body was walking. You know, have somebody walk by you and you feel the gust of wind and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, someone just walked by me. It was like
Right.
that. It was like that. And I could feel with my eyes closed, like this shadow passing me.
Mm-hmm.
And then within that second, that person collapsed.
Wow.
And and that's when I realized like I really have to stay in my prayer and dance even harder to help that person. And my conclusion of that was like multiple things. One, it wasn't the spirit that caused the person to collapse, is my belief. It's really that person. That person probably interacted with that spirit, and it was so overwhelming, they collapsed. If they were maybe really centered, deep in their prayer, that spirit probably wouldn't have affected them.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, after they collapsed, I felt the spirit come back at me and face me
Wow.
and look at me as if sort of like almost like growling, like as if trying to intimidate me, and then I just looked at it like you don't bother me, and suddenly it relaxed, and then it's just started dancing right in front of me.
Oh, wow.
And so um, I believe that there are these spirits, and I've experienced it in like an ayahuasca journey. There's these spirits that come to us, and they might appear scary,
Mm-hmm.
but if you are calm and you're centered and you have peace within yourself, that spirit turns and just becomes like an ally, becomes a friend,
Mm.
and becomes part of your experience in a positive way. Um, and so my interpretation of it is just the fear that we bring in is what makes them want to be like almost like a reflection of us, saying, "Oh, you have fear? Here I am afraid. Here I am scary. Is that scaring you? Oh, yeah, I am. Oh, collapse."
Well,
Or,
yeah.
it's scaring me.
Yeah. I mean, some people think that those spirits feed on fear.
Right. And I don't, and I, that's not my experience. I really believe that those spirits are, it's not necessarily that they're feeding as much as they're reflecting. So the amount of fear you have within yourself gets reflected by them.
Okay.
So it might feel like they're sucking on us. And having done, shamanic work, like I do believe that there are legit parasites. And I think that might be just like that's like a whole nother conversation and a whole nother entity of sorts. But I think in terms of the spirits, I think they really just sort of reflect, because as a spirit, they have no mind, they have no body. And so their experience is really just sort of like in the moment. It's just right there. They don't really have the capacity to think or to reason. That's what we
Mm.
do as living beings. And this,
Yeah.
that's my belief from what I've learned from elders. But anyway, yeah. So that
No, that's
the
super interesting. That's
yeah,
super interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I believe that this reality is created around belief, right? So
yeah,
it's like what we believe is what our reality becomes, right?
hmm,
So that's my perspective, and I think that some people need to experience these experiences that other people don't have, because there's a deeper lesson for that soul, that like maybe they need to step into their power, so they need to face these things to do that, or really facing and overcoming the fear and realizing that it's an illusion, like those kind of things. I think that it's almost like we manifest these things at certain times in our life. And it's so interesting we're talking about this, because I've been out here in the mountain house in Pennsylvania, and this is where I started my awakening. And I had everything started out here for me like 12 years ago. And I remember I wrote out a journal, which I'm turning into a book, and I'm reading about it, right? And I'm like, okay, like these things were happening then, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I was like you said, like an infant in this reality, right? And then now where I'm at with the tools that I have, it's like I know I can feel and sense why these things are happening to me, and I don't need as much support from my guardians and things like that as I did in the beginning when I was just like a little baby crawling around, you know? So, yeah, I'm really happy that you mentioned that. And for those people that are listening that have never heard of Sundance, sometimes people hear Sundance and they think of the music festival, but this is not that. Uh, can
Yeah.
you uh, can you just describe what the Sundance is, where it comes from, maybe some of the history, those kind of things?
Yes. So this in Lakota belief, and I want to preface with depending on who you speak to, there's and this is to respect to my Lakota brothers and sisters and elders. There's different perspectives within the Lakota tradition because you've got different tribal affiliations within Lakota, and so each of them may have different origin stories of how things happened.
Hmm.
But one of my elders that I appreciate speaks about Lakota always looking at things from multiple perspectives. So it's a little bit different than I think some of our Western thinking, where we want to have sort of like, hey, this is how it started this one way, and that's what's true, and all the other ways are not true,
Hmm.
and it can't possibly be true. And in
Right.
Lakota, it's more of like we have different reasons for why we do what we do, because that's life. It's
Right.
it's not we have these different purposes, different reasons for why we have these different ceremonies.
Hmm.
Um, but the Sundance is one of the seven sacred ceremonies. When White Buffalo Calf Woman came to the Lakota people, she brought the pipe and she told them, "Hey, you're gonna come across a total of seven ceremonies, and those seven are going to be an integral part of your life and your well-being and maintaining your life in a good way, in a balanced way." Um, the Sundance is in Lakota is Wiwong Yang Wachipi, which is dancing, gazing at the sun.
Hmm.
And one of the reasons why we do this is because number one, it is one of the seven sacred, but it's also one of the three sacred ceremonies for men to do.
Hmm.
There are three ceremonies that are designed to help men become better men in this society.
Hmm.
And and it's not that women can't Sundance, they do. But for us as men, it helps us to connect with the energy of creation. So where women they can create life, we can't do that.
Hmm.
We don't have that capacity. We're not designed that way, and because we can't create that, we also don't have that. We have less of that aspect of the sense of what it is to create life and what it is to give of ourselves, physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, for another.
Hmm.
Right. So a woman sacrifices herself, literally sacrifices her own life, and in some cases, literally their life, like they die from childbirth. And when they do live and thrive and survive from birth, giving birth, it's still a sacrifice. They're no longer the same person they were before,
Hmm.
as much as they might try to. And
Right.
I think that's like another conversation too of how do we honor women and how do women honor themselves in this new way of being as mothers. Um, and so the Sundance is an opportunity for us men to be able to give of ourselves. And the only thing that we can give of ourselves is our flesh,
Hmm.
our blood. And so within the Sundance, although it's not mandatory, the Sundance, you can pierce your skin. And when you pierce your skin, you are attached to a tree that's in the center of an arbor, and you break. And when you break, that flesh is then cut off, and that's put into a prayer tie, into a robe, and that's your prayer that you deliver. So the Sundance is it's 4 days of purification, and then 4 days of the actual dance itself. And I call it like the Super Bowl of Lakota ceremonies, because it requires the whole community involvement. Every person has to be involved. There's no way you could do this by yourself. Whereas like Humblecha, Vision Quest, you could do that by yourself, right?
Hmm.
Just go up to the
Yeah.
mountains by yourself. Um, And so Sundance for me is like the most beautiful ceremony of the Lakota people, because you go and you pray for those 4 days with no food, no water. You're dancing during the day, and then at various times during the day you're taking breaks, and then at night you sleep, and the next day you repeat, and you do that for those 4 days. And you typically will go into the Sundance with a prayer as a dancer. You're going in with it might be one or two prayers. I know some dancers who have been dancing for multiple years and they have like 5 or 6 prayers that are really strong, it's like you want to amplify this prayer. You want to supercharge it. You want to send it out to the universe with as much of your intention and your heart and your physicality that you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Sundance allows us as men and for women to be able to do this, to be able to go with your prayer and make that prayer and send it so that it'll be heard and that it can be manifest.
Mm-hmm.
So
Beautiful.
that's a
Beautiful.
little bit of the Sundance.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Yeah, there's a lot more to
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
but that's I think that's a really great introductory explanation. So that's awesome. So so you were starting to say that 1996 you had your first Inipi Sweat Lodge, right? And
Yep.
then where did things start to open up and evolve for you throughout those 26 years? And what are some of the milestones that really you can look back on and say, okay, this was an important one?
Um, so the first thing that pops in my mind, I started doing Sweat Lodge back in 96, and I had been wanting to do Sundance because my elder, he was a Sundancer and an Eagle dancer, um, which again, we could talk about that later if you want. But that's like, for me, that was the greatest kind of sacrifice you can give as an Eagle dancer. It represents the protector of the people. And it struck in my mind, if I wanted to be a servant, how well could I serve the people, and in what capacity can I serve the people?
Mm-hmm.
And that has stayed true for all my life. How can I best serve the people? But it wasn't possible to enter Sundance at that time. A lot of the Sundances were closed. You really had to like know somebody who knew somebody to get in there. And so it fast forward probably, I think maybe 12 years, so probably about halfway. Um, I had transitioned from one relationship to another, and I really started asking myself the question of like, what am I doing in my life, and what am I doing in this relationship, and is this relationship in alignment with where I see myself going? And it wasn't. So I needed to leave that relationship. And I think the most poignant time was when my father was sick, which was probably, I guess now it's been 8 years. And I knew that he was going to leave his body, and I wanted to be there for him spiritually. And so I had spoken with a couple of people who had done like hospice work, who had done spiritual counseling, and uh, I spoke with one person in particular who said, the best thing you could really do is just be there for him for his own process in death.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make this about you or imposing your will or even your belief system on him.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was Catholic, and so I decided to, just to have a better respect for death, I decided to take a training. It was actually a shamanic training through Michael Harner. It was on death and dying.
Mm.
And the training was very much about how to get into an altered state of being, an altered state of mind using drumming so that you could connect with the spiritual world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that was like another, when people do combination on locks, those old
Mm-hmm.
like dial locks, and you go like to the left and then you go to the right twice and go to the left,
Right.
it was like that. Like I'd already gone to the left, okay, now I had to go to the right, and I
Right.
had to go. You have to like click in just into the right position to make sure you're in the right place before you go to the other side.
Right.
I think that was that second click. Like, oh, this world that I see is so much greater than what I'm seeing. And um, so fast forward to the night before my dad was going to pass away. My mom, who is very intuitive, but because she grew up in South America, and in that area in Colombia, being indigenous, being native was really frowned upon.
Hmm.
A lot of people saw them as second class citizens. And so my mom was really, really sort of reluctant to embrace anything that might seem non Catholic. And
Mm.
being intuitive in that capacity was not, people were kind of like, whoa, you can't, that's not Catholic, if you're using your intuition.
Hmm.
But she'd always have these like crazy things happen to her. And she was just like, I don't know what to do with it. Anyway, so I say that because just like the week before my dad passes away, my mom calls the whole family in and says, "Hey, let's all get together
Hmm.
because I want everybody to take this time to say goodbye." She like intuitively knew that it was happening. It was going to happen. No doctor had gave us a time frame or anything, and so everybody came to the house, and we all said our goodbyes in some fashion, and then everyone started leaving, and I just had this feeling of like, I think I should stay here with my mom tonight. And she was like, yeah, please, that would be great. And so in the morning, just I think it was just before the sun came up, I was sleeping on the couch in the living room. My dad, he was alone in the bedroom. My mom was in another bedroom just adjacent to his. So the distance between the three of us was really, really small. It was like literally 10 feet. We were all really close to each other. And suddenly we hear this crash. My mom gets up, I get up, and we see in the hallway there was this picture of at that time it was my son and my nephew when they were like a year old. There's a
Hmm.
picture of them on the wall, and it just fell off the wall.
Oh, wow.
And so we were looking at each other like, what is that about?
Right.
You know? And so she went back to bed, and I got back onto the couch, and within seconds I had this like awake asleep dream of this man with a light behind him approaching me, and he looks at me, and I can't really see his face. I can't quite make out the details of his face, but I could definitely feel the energy. It's like just love, compassion. And he says to me, "Is he ready?" And I knew he was talking about my dad.
Right.
And I get up off the couch, and it's like I'm holding my dad in my arms, almost like a little baby. And I lift him up and I give him to this person. And I said, he's ready. And he takes him, and then they're gone. And suddenly my mom wakes up. She calls for me and says, come to the room, come to the room. And I come to the room. She's like, check your dad. I don't think he's breathing. And I check, I've got my stethoscope, I'm listening, I'm feeling, my heart's racing. So I'm listening to this, if you ever use a stethoscope, it's like I can hear my own heartbeat through
Yeah.
my own stethoscope. I'm like,
Yeah.
is that my heart or is that his? But yeah, he had passed away.
Wow.
Um, and so yeah, I realized again, it was like another an affirmation, not an affirmation, but a confirmation that the spiritual world is very, very real.
Hmm.
And it helped me, like we talked about this infancy of spirituality. It was coming out of that infancy and going into adolescence now, like, whoa, I can't deny this. I
Hmm.
can't. I could deny it, but why would I?
Right.
It was very real for me. That was a very real thing for my mom. um and so that was probably the next big aha, next big turn of the cog, that woke me up. And then I think it was just from there. It was uh, with my wife Amua Jen, having her support in my spirituality, my spiritual growth, has been really, really instrumental in my spiritual maturity.
Hmm.
Her like sort of like tenacity in saying, "Hey, do this work. This work's important, and let's do whatever we have to do to make it happen," gave me permission to step into it even more. So
Hmm.
maybe 12, 10 years ago, maybe I can't, this timing's like, maybe also close to there around that time, maybe a little bit before that. My wife got into doing a ceremony called Long Dance. It's a women's ceremony that happens annually in the central coast of California. And she was invited. And so she brought me along, and the women dance from sunset to sunrise, and the men hold space outside the camp. So we're not part of that dance at all in any fashion in terms of visualizing it, participating it. We step outside of the camp completely, and we hold security perimeters while they're doing their dance, so they could be safe, both physically and energetically.
Hmm.
And so that was the next elder, who was Hua. She's the clan mother, my clan mother,
Hmm.
who has been really instrumental in helping me see the value of women's ceremony and women respecting their place in our society, and doing their own work, which translates into my own work.
Hmm.
So I could not have my wife do her spiritual work without me doing mine.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand, and in a marriage, in a relationship that we have, we either are growing together or we're not, and
Hmm.
it's always going to be, someone grows a little more than the other if you want to try to quantify the whole thing, but we both are like supporting each other in that spiritual process of maturity, and seeing where at some point we're going to get to the place where we are then the elder or the teacher, and we are helping others to advance themselves, to better themselves, to grow themselves.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. Yeah, I was just as you were sharing that, I was reflecting on how we had gone together to set up the teepees for
Mm-hmm.
that long dance. I think it was the last year that Amua had been doing that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really beautiful. It was such a beautiful land and such a beautiful setup.
Mm.
And yeah, it was one of my first times learning how to build a teepee, a traditional teepee. So that was really cool to learn from you and from the other guys that were out there. So that was really cool. And yeah, I wanted to also it brought back thoughts of how we started a men's group together,
Mm-hmm.
and that was, I think, what, 2018? I think,
I think so, because that was, yeah, I think that was because we
yeah, it
were
was
in
either
Carlsbad at the
late
time. Yeah.
2018 or early 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so we were just talking about how back in 2019, early 2019, late 2018, Paul and I, with one of our other buddies, started a men's circle, and we were doing it in your converted garage, right? Which was really cool, and it was just like really nice because we didn't have a name for it. We didn't like make it a big deal. We just invited our friends and whoever they wanted to bring, and it was just like it was really nice, right? Like it was just like a really nice way for us to hold each other accountable and to do some of that deeper work that was really important, as men. And it was for me, it was like a foundation for all the different men's groups that I attended and started and was part of after that. So yeah, it was a really nice time, a really great to reflect on that as you were sharing.
Yeah, I wanted to say how much I appreciate how much you just move forward with the co-creation and creation of that. And I think that's, talking about, as we're sort of leading into how we can be as men, that's one really great example of how we can show up in the world, which is, if you have an inclination to do something, just do it. It doesn't have to be complicated. If you're yearning for camaraderie, for brotherhood, for belonging, then just do it. Just seek it out.
Mm-hmm.
And like if it, like we kept it pretty straightforward, but we also like kind of went with the flow with it. We
Mm-hmm.
ended up doing some meditation with it. And
Yeah.
we had some really beautiful men show up for that who were
Yeah.
very, very appreciative. And it was, I think the time always went by really fast. It was like, oh, we're done already? And
Right.
yeah, we're done. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I think for men who are watching your podcast, young men in particular, who are feeling isolated,
Mm-hmm.
or they're feeling like they don't know what to do. Number one, you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And two, like this is a very primal need, for humans to
Mm-hmm.
to belong.
Right.
And whatever powers that be that are attempting to divide all of us, I think that's where that's successful. Is it creates division instead of unification. And so I believe that some of the work that we need to do as men is to step in and say, hey, let's find our commonality. Let's find the place that we can all agree upon, and then just hold space for each other so we don't feel so alone. Because unfortunately, there's so many young people they're taking their lives because they just feel lost.
Yeah.
And it's so painful. I'm one of three brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the youngest. So most of my life I've had a sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a little bit more as an adult. I've felt a little more lost, until I found my spiritual path, and I could see how if you're like an only child, that might be really intense, or you're a child with like a single parent,
Mm-hmm.
or no parents, fostered, any of those kind of combinations, or even if it just seems like you have a normal life. I think for the most part, we're isolated in these really small family units. It might just
Yeah.
be two or three,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just that's not the design. I don't believe that's the human design for us to live in that way.
No, I
I
don't
don't think
either.
we can. I don't think we can thrive.
Yeah, thank you for that reflection, brother. I mean, uh, it's I totally agree. I think that it's so important for men in particular to gather and to see other men and witness their journey, right? There were so many times in different men's circles I've been in where I think I'm having a really rough time, right? And then the guy next to me, man, he's really having a rough time. And so it just puts things in perspective, and it also there's so many different aspects to it that are there's like this primal desire inside me, at least, to like gather with brothers and to be around men that I really appreciate how they navigate the world, and I I I think you were a really great co-facilitator because I really loved the way that you present yourself and the way that you navigate as a man, you know, and I really always honored the way that you um, just show up. I knew that I could always count on you if I ever needed anything. I could always, for me, those kind of qualities are really important. And I also really appreciated your structure because at that time, my structure wasn't very. I just didn't have very much structure. I could do it, but I was like, what's the point? So the more I leaned into it and the more I observed how you did it, it really set me up for a really powerful way to navigate this reality with the balance of that intuition and that structure, which not a lot of men have that or even have exposure to that, you know?
Mm. Yeah, I can see. I think that speaks into how we can learn from each other,
Hmm.
and we don't need to make it into a competition, although we could, and that's always fun too. But
Right.
like, just a friendly competition of like, hey, I look how structured I am now.
Right.
But and I have felt of you, Peter, the level of your intuition has I've always been super impressed by that, like your ability to
Thank you.
tap in very quickly, very deeply, um, has helped me as well to relax into that and to not be afraid of it,
Hmm.
and to use that as a model. And again, I think that's where like a men's group, a men's circle can be so helpful, that we could be models for each other. Like somebody has a skill set like yours where you've been working on your intuition, and you're following your life in that way. Wow, how could I do more of that? Or, oh, look, here's Kiat's win, and he's got the structure. Maybe he's kind of hyper structured, but what can I get from that? What can I glean from that and bring into my own life to bring more balance into my life?
For sure.
Right. Yeah. So it's like really working like more as a team, as opposed to, well, I just need to be better than him so I can, achieve X, Y, and Z faster or better, or get more accolades or whatever it is.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that it's never about the competition with anybody but self, you know?
Yeah.
Like when it's something like you know, I my competition with myself from yesterday is with myself from yesterday, right? Like I want
Mm,
to be a little bit better, even if it's like a 0.0001% of yesterday. Like what does that look like to me? Like what does better even mean, right?
mm,
Like
mm-hmm,
and it doesn't have it though. To me those answers come from a higher place, right? Like it's not an egoic thing, even though there are aspects of like money and things like that that I strive to to hit different milestones with. But at the end of the day, it's like, how can I be a better man, right? Like,
mm,
how can I show up more for others? How can I be of service? Kind of like what you were saying when we opened up the podcast, right? Like a man of the service to the people, and that looks different for every single one of us. It could look like a phone call from my buddy who's just went through a breakup. It could look like meeting someone at a garage sale and letting them know about, you know, working with crystals, or about the podcast that could teach them whatever they're looking for, whatever it is, right? Like it's not a space of ego. It's a space of like, okay, what can I do to step more into my authenticity, more into who I want to be. Like, okay, I really like the way that my teacher, my spiritual teacher there does XYZ. What steps can I take to get a little closer to that?
mm-hmm. Yeah. And because our paths are so unique, the going from point one to point A to point B is going to look different. So like you
Mhm.
say, oh, I see my elder when I, for example, I look at my first elder, Yellow Horseman, who is he's a sun dancer. And and when I first saw him and met him, I thought, oh my gosh, this guy's like way advanced.
Mhm.
How will I ever get to that place
For
where I could
sure.
be like as cool as he is
Right.
spiritually, and now I look at myself and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm arriving to that place,
Mhm.
and that's pretty cool. Like it's taken me the amount of time it's taken me.
Right.
If that's 25 years, 30 years, yeah, that's what it's done, um, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Because in that time, there was all different kinds of lessons that you had to
yeah,
go through. That also you also raised a child through that whole period, and there's all these different things that for certain people, that's just the way I believe our soul chose to evolve or move through these types of remembrances sometimes, or newer soul experiences.
mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'll tell you what, man. I mean, uh, I think showing up as a man, right, can look different for every person. Just like our journeys look different, as every person. And I think that for me, it was like taking what I didn't like aspects of my father, for example, right? And then taking other aspects that I did like from him, from my grandfather, from you know different teachers and babysitters, whatever that I had that I really appreciated from the masculine side, right? And just learning that it was okay for me to create this version of it for myself, what it looked
Mm.
like just for me, and not striving for it to look like anybody else. It was just taking the little strands of the shirt and resewing my own shirt, you know.
And how did you know like what pieces to take? How did you even know whether that was something that was, oh, this would make me a better man? What was your barometer?
I think the barometer was how I felt in the presence of that energy from that man, right?
Mhm.
Like if I really liked the way my grandfather was really good at bringing people together, and he was really funny. He could always make people laugh no matter what. Like he would just come up with jokes out of thin air, you know? And I really liked those qualities, you know? Like certain qualities that I didn't resonate with were like extreme anger or aggression or any type of like energetic or physical uh, instillment of pain or some sort of control, right? Like those aspects felt really uncomfortable for me and really very negative experiences, you know. And then certain teachers would come at certain very specific milestones in my life, and then they would show me like, oh, I can be stoic like this man, right? Like he doesn't say much, but when he says something, it goes right into your soul, you know. And but like not but seeing the extreme of that, right? Like where he was almost too introverted, that person, where he didn't really have much of a community and people that could support him, you know? So it was like gauging it and kind of testing it, right? Like doing a test to see like, okay, is that how I want to be as a man? You know, those kind of things. What about for you?
Um, I think something similar, which is and I find this really, the reason why I ask you this question is because some people have this need to have sort of like a objective or neutral standard, um, and maybe because they don't necessarily trust their own feelings, they like, yeah, they're unsure whether what they're feeling is accurate or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like a muscle. It just needs to be used and worked, and the more you practice it, the better you get at it.
Mm-hmm.
Because like how you're describing, which is you come across something, and if it feels right, if it feels like it's easy in your body, 9 times out of 10, it's probably something that's worth integrating into your system,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that has been I have found that to be true for myself. And when I've talked to men who feel a little lost and like, I don't know if I should be with this person because I feel this way when I'm around them. And or a sister who's like, I'm with this guy and I don't know if I really should be with this guy anymore because maybe they're not like respecting me in certain ways. And I'm like, well, if it doesn't feel right, then it's probably true for you that that's not where you ought to be, or you need to address it in some way to see if it is that really in fact true. And like what you said, put it to the test.
Mm-hmm.
Like let me take that quality of that person and let me see what it is in my own body, what it is and how it might express itself and what it will look like. And if it returns to me in a good way, then I know, oh, this is a keeper. This quality, this thing I want to keep for myself. And
Mm-hmm.
in the Lakota, one of the Lakota principles that we follow is the law of generosity, which is when you give, you receive, and it's sort of like an equal exchange. Um, and there's this thing that you can. There's also a language within Lakota, original Lakota, where if you ask for help and you ask for help in a certain way, it gives the other person who's going to help you an opportunity to, number one, accept to help you, but there's understanding that by helping you, that they will also receive blessings. They will also receive some generosity in some way in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very particular way of asking, for this help. But it just reminds me of like when we have this quality that is of benefit to ourselves, usually, almost always, when we then emanate it, then we see a reflection of it in some way. So when you're kind to somebody, for example, just because you accept that being kind is it's a good way to be in life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good way to be in life, is to be kind to people. Suddenly these people are like really kind to the next person or the next 7 people that they come
Mm-hmm.
across. Maybe
Yeah.
that person decides that day they're not going to kill themselves
Mm-hmm.
because you just showed them some kindness and you gave them hope.
Mm-hmm.
You gave them a glimpse of light where they're like, wow, maybe I'm not alone. Maybe there is somebody who cares about me. Maybe humanity isn't lost.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe kindness does really exist. And so they turn themselves around. Yeah, to answer your question.
Yeah, yeah, I really like that. I really like that. I truly believe though that when you do something from the heart, and when I do something from the heart, right? And when I do it in a way that's genuine, I'm not looking for anything in return. I'm just doing it because I want to do something kind, right? It comes back tenfold,
Mm.
and it very rarely, if ever, it comes from that same person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, to me, it's like when I learned about the collective consciousness and how it's all a web and we're all interconnected, every single one of us on the planet, it's it it just, every time it just becomes more and more clear, like, okay, yeah, okay, that's beautiful. It just came in this stream, and it's almost like a game, right? Like it's like, okay, I know it's coming, right? Like it's like a universal law. How is it going to come this time? But it's like I didn't I'm not doing it because I know that that's going to happen. It's like sometimes I'll play that game, with the universe. And a lot of times it's like stuff that I thought about maybe a couple of months ago that I, you know, would like in my life, like a pair of specific shorts or whatever it is, right? And then they just show up at the thrift store or somebody gifts me it. And I think it's a certain frequency too, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned in a podcast before where it's like I've had when I live in that frequency, I'll hang out with friends that are in that frequency, right? And I'll be going on a trip and I'll need a backpack, like a specific large camping backpack that I'll take with me on my trip, right? And I'll be like, oh, I wonder, I'd like to have one. I gotta start looking for one. And then without asking, my friend that I'll go to lunch with will be like, "Hey, I got this camping backpack that I just don't need anymore. It's in the car. Do you want it by any chance?" Like that kind of stuff is undeniable to me. It's like it's about giving and receiving and asking, and navigating from here, from the heart.
Yeah, I think what you're touching on with is like the frequency, navigating from the heart. That's a really important piece when it comes to making prayers that I have learned in my praying process. My skill set in praying
Hmm.
is establishing what's the frequency of my prayer. And it's my prayers have become much less about the asking, and sometimes there is asking, and it's much more about setting the tone, which is a frequency of what it is that I already see happening.
Ah,
Right. So it's something that's in my heart, that I have, that I hold, that it's sort of like this sweet thing that I really sort of desire to be. And instead of, say, for example, saying, "Oh, I really want strength," I'm going to pray for strength.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you pray for strength, then you might get a difficulty in order for you to show up, so you can prove how strong you are.
Right.
And which is great too. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But if instead of saying praying for strength, really speaking into how strong you already are,
Mm.
and
Right.
holding that in your mind. When I was, I think it was my third day at the Sundance, I was praying. I was praying to the sky. I was praying to Shkan Shkan, and I'm like, I'm gonna tomorrow is gonna be the fourth day, and tomorrow is gonna be a hard day, and I was planning on what's called staking out for the day, which is when you pierce in the morning, and then you stay connected to the tree, which Peter, you know what I'm talking about, and so you stay the whole day until the end of the day, and then you break off at the end of the day, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to you might pierce on that same round, and within a minutes, then you break off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So staking out is it's kind of like a baby form of eagle dancing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm praying, and I'm sort of like just talking to my spirits on the third day, and suddenly I connect with Tunkashila, which in Lakota is like grandfather, is like the very first human. It's our greatest ancestor that we have, Tunkashila, and and I'm just saying, like, what do I need to do, or where do I need to be, or can I do this thing that I'm thinking about doing tomorrow? And the answer that I got was, um, what in terms of what do I need to do or believe, or what's the obstacle in my way? And the answer was, you need to just believe, and you need to know how strong you really are.
Mm.
Like, you have the strength already, you have the capacity to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is obviously a reflection of not just the next day, the fourth day, but in my life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm much stronger than I realize. I'm much stronger than I believe that I am.
Yeah.
And so if I can believe and know that I'm a very strong human being, then I can do this thing that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was an interesting kind of prayer that occurred to me, of just getting this message. And so it dovetails into the idea of, like, I don't need to pray for strength because I have the strength.
Mm-hmm.
I need to pray for the vision. The prayer is the communication with whoever I'm talking to, with the spirit or spirits, or if you're praying to God, is that I see myself with strength. I see myself with the ability to endure through this difficult time in my life, to be able um, to let that worry go. I see
Mm-hmm.
myself like relaxing and trusting, and knowing that if I need to pay those bills, that they're going to get paid for, because I know that I can show up to get that done.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the frequency. When we talk about
Yeah.
frequency,
It almost so from as you were sharing, it almost sounds like an affirmation, right?
yeah,
It's like I am strong, right?
yeah,
And then actually not just saying it, but believing it and matching the frequency of that belief, right?
yes,
Like embodying that, and I'm getting chills as I'm saying it, but embodying that, right? Like fully taking it in and being like, I am strong, right? And like standing in that, and then from there, the it's like the prayer's already done because you've already stepped into the frequency of it.
yes. And that term embodiment, I think, is very appropriate,
Mm-hmm.
because it really is, you are integrating it into every part of your being.
Mm-hmm.
You're hearing it, so you got mental, you're feeling it, the emotional, you're sort of spiritually believing it, so that's the spiritual, and then you're almost literally feeling it in your body, right? It's like
Sometimes you are, yeah.
and sometimes you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, I feel so strong. And
Yeah.
for sure, on that fourth day, when I staked down, man, I felt so good. I felt
Mm.
stronger on that fourth day than I think I did on the first day.
Wow.
I was like, this is great. Why didn't I do this on the first day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
powerful.
yeah, it
It's really
really
powerful.
is. Yeah. And then I think, when you study like manifesting skills and, affirmations, I think you'll find, as I'm sure you have found, that it really is about holding that frequency for as long as you can
Hmm.
in order to ignite the creation of it. So if you can hold that frequency long enough, then the universe picks up on it and is like, oh, yes, we're going to match it.
For sure. I have a question that just came through that I'm really curious on your opinion on this, right? So, um, Sundance is for the people.
Yeah.
Vision Quest is more of our own journey, going inwards, connecting with God, connecting with the Great Spirit, and then from there, usually people do that for 4 years and then go on for those that feel called to do Sundance, right?
Yeah.
And there's this idea and this belief, right? Because we're talking about belief that we're praying for everybody there, right? And for all our loved ones and for humanity in general, right? There's a lot of those kind of prayers.
Mm.
And and then there's this belief in this concept that nobody can do it for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I believe that I can't do anything for anybody else, right? Like I can pray for you, right? But I can't pray as you, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference there. I
Yes.
can I can um, I can believe in you, but I can't do what you have to do, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like, and I guess my question is, how do you feel about that? Because I think those people that are there and praying, it's a really beautiful thing. And they still have to do their own work, regardless of how many people are out there dancing for them.
What comes to mind is two different things when you're asking that, because I was talking to my wife about she was reading a book. It was about a sun dancer who was saying that at Sundance, you're not supposed to be praying for yourself. That it's like you said, it's supposed to be something outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's might be a little bit more of a Western way of looking at it, because again, from the Lakota perspective, there's nothing technically wrong, because in doing something, yes, we have protocols and we have traditions, and in this way of praying, there's an understanding that if everything's nonlinear and we're all interconnected, if humanity, the let's just say, like, the ability for humanity to survive is based off of somebody to be awakened, then very much it's about that person, and that
Mm,
person needs to awaken in order to help humanity survive. So that person does need to in essence, make it about themselves, because it's a catalyst. It's a pivot off of making something else happen, something really, really big. So
mm-hmm.
I'm of the belief that in Sundance, yes, with Sundance we go with a prayer that's outside of ourselves, but that it's perfectly okay to ask the question of, like, how am I getting in the way of that prayer happening?
Mm-hmm.
Because some people pray for like the stopping of child trafficking,
Right.
right? And I'm like, well, that's huge. I mean, there's got to be like lots of millions of moving pieces in order for that thing to stop, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not just a single person, right? But if I could also make a prayer of looking at myself and saying, what do I need to see? What needs to be a little bit clearer for me to know what the step is that I can take in order to make that vision of seeing that particular behavior action to stop, to
Right.
change,
Mm-hmm.
right? So so although for the most part, yes, Sundance is very much about a prayer that's outside of yourself. I think it's perfectly normal to take a day or a moment to be like, what's my game here, man? what am I not seeing so I could really be a servant to the people? Because maybe I am a critical piece in this thing that I'm praying about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was one thing that came up in terms of we're like, how are we praying, or what are we praying for?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there was something else I lost in terms of you were talking about praying for the people or for the community, right?
Yeah, I was saying like, everybody has a responsibility to do their own
Right.
healing, right?
Yes.
And so it's not like any particular person can take on that for them. They're still going to have to do it.
Yeah, so thank you for keeping me on track on that one. So the second, yeah, that was the second thing, which is how much of an effect does my prayer have on another person?
Right.
And I'm very much on the belief of a person needs to take action. A person does need to do something
Mm-hmm.
in order to help themselves. Um, and so if I were to pray for that person, what I have seen happen is it's like inspiration. Like when we look at the word inspiration, breath, life, when I'm making my prayer during the Sundance, I'm seeing inspiration, I'm seeing light, I'm seeing life going to this person. And it might be like just that little bit of inspiration, that little bit of boost in their chi, in their life force, to be able to turn their life around,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
there have been and there have also been miracles. People who have gone to Sundance as a participant of like in within the outside the arbor, and they've gone to the tree and they've had miracles happen. Uh, and so for sure, I now believe in miracles because I've seen it happen now and I've heard it happen, that people can literally go to the tree and like their cancer goes away, the answer to their prayer finally appears.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes into what you're saying, which is I can pray for somebody and say, I see you being healthy, and I see this thing that you need to overcome to allow that healing to occur.
Mm-hmm.
And then that person has the sort of that responsibility of saying, cool, now I need to do the thing. Maybe, and it could be subtle, right? It could be just that one person they need to talk to that has the answer, or it could be 5 or 6 people they need to talk to get the answer that they need,
Yeah.
to get the support that they need. So I believe it's all happening simultaneously in a nonlinear fashion, and it's very possible to help people in that physical, non-physical way, in the spiritual way.
I really like that perspective. The image I got in my head was like either turning the key to open the door for them, or like cracking the door open and now they see that there's a light and they can open the door, like it's it's really interesting because that little bit of chi, which is, it's all energy, right? Like that chi, that prana that you're sending through the prayer to that person is working in these ways that science can't explain, but something is shifting, right? And
Yeah.
I've seen it happen from Vision Quest, where I'll have different prayers and then I'll come home and there'll be a big shift in that person, or they'll just show up at the door, or something will happen where there's a shift. And I've seen it happen consecutive years in a row where it's like my mind is like, oh, okay, maybe that was just a coincidence, and then it's like, nope, it happened again. So like it's working. So it's, yeah, that I really like that perspective, and yeah, it's really interesting, and it kind of ties back to what we were talking about with how men should or would be great for them to show up. Did you receive any messages or anything like that during your Sundance about that?
Yeah, I had a lot of things come up around that. And it was confirmed, the messages that I received, sort of like the instructions that I received, the do it this way instructions that came to me have already been presenting themselves just a couple weeks after Sundance as I'm interacting with people. And um, so in no particular order in terms of how we can be better men. And if there's women listening to this podcast, it definitely applies to them in this way, which is if a man is a godly man, I believe that he is going to be a better man. And I use the word God just because it's a common term that can mean a lot of different things depending on your spiritual belief.
Mm-hmm.
I have my own belief system that varies from, like Catholic and Christian belief. But what I mean by a godly man is somebody who sees himself in connection with something that's greater than himself,
Mm.
and that this thing that's greater than himself helps to guide him, and there hopefully comes with that values or ways of being that um, that hold your standard,
Mm-hmm.
and they help anchor you. Help anchor a person, a man, in his own life, and subsequently helps anchor his family around him. So a woman who's and I'm talking obviously like in a heterosexual relationship, but it could be true in another format. A woman will see this man and be like, gravitate towards him because they're like, whoa, he's got this energy about him that's so like weighted and anchored and certain. There's a certainty about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that we can do as men is get ourselves to that energy of like, what's your belief? What can you hold on to that can be your North Star regardless of what's happening in your life, that you can always
Mm.
come back to. Um, and so like for me, like the set of values that I have been implementing in my life in this last year going into Sundance is White Buffalo Calf woman's values that she gave to the Lakota people, and that there's 7 of them. Um, and as I've been studying those through this last year, realizing how much each of those things impact my life, and whenever I start getting a little off track and my partner might be feeling that, I can come back to those values and, okay, let me get back to this. Okay, this is where I'm at. And then I end up, not from an ego standpoint, from a very humble standpoint, I end up being sort of a holding point for my partner, that she can then anchor and be like, whoa, he's holding the state of mind, he's holding the state of being, and I can't right now, but he is,
Mm-hmm.
and I need that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that in a relationship with a man and a woman, it's an important formula for success in a relationship, is that the man is pretty steadfast, and again, it's from a humble place. It's not from a place of power, like trying to have authority. It's just from a place of certainty and knowing this higher order of things is what keeps us sane.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then it's like gravity. You've got if you've ever studied gravity and time and space, and the fabric of time and space, somebody used this really great analogy, as if you use like a cloth and you throw a ball on the cloth and you allow it to kind of roll on the cloth. It'll create like a little bit of an elliptical shape. If you
Mm-hmm.
put something in the middle of that cloth, like something heavy, it distorts the cloth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you go to throw another ball, that ball will actually create an orbit around that central point.
Mm.
And that's one of the theories and ideas behind time and space, and the fabric of time and space and gravity, that there's a distortion in the field, and that these objects that are going around are really just sort of following this distortion of the fabric of time and space.
Oh,
And so I
I really
believe,
like the way you describe that. That's really
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So as a
Yeah.
man, imagine as a man us doing that again, not from a place of ego, not from a place of like I want to control the orbit of this thing.
Right.
It's really more of like the design of the universe is this way. If I can hold the center, then my favorite moon can encircle me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to have an influence on me because the moon does, right? The moon has a
Mm-hmm.
huge influence on the earth, just like the sun. That's what the earth, the moon and the sun create the tides and all that cool stuff. We can do the same as men, is we could create this like almost like our own gravitational pull of sorts.
I really
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. So you mentioned the term anchoring, right? Like being an anchor.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it sounds like a combination of things, but the grounding aspect feels really important to that,
Mm.
right? Like staying grounded, right? Like rooting into the land that we're currently on, even if that looks different week by week if we're traveling or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like for me, I think that connection to the land, that sacred connection, like thanking the land, really feeling ourselves barefoot on that land, having that energetic electrical connection with the land, and really from a really genuine place, like showing so much gratitude to that land for holding us for whatever period of time we're there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's just for a moment, just for an hour, whatever it is, right? Like just grounding into that, and then in those moments, right? Like when you do find yourself kind of off center, right? What are some of the things that you do or like to do or have found effective for you to bring you back into that centered place?
There's number one, having a daily practice, I think is really key. And it can look different for every person. For me, I've always been a very physical person. My physical how I interact with the world is on a physical level is pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do some physical practices now that have been very helpful in setting myself up for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the cold plunge in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
There's the breath work in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
There's the greeting of the sun in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
There's the prayer that I use. I've got long hair, so I braid my hair. I was taught by my elder. Uh, every braid is a prayer. So the longer the hair, the longer the prayer. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something I do every morning,
Mm-hmm.
and it helps set that tone for the day. And I've always, fortunately, maybe I've always been a pretty grounded person, and that comes pretty easy for me.
Yeah, you
Uh,
for sure are one of the most grounded I know. Yeah.
I can't take any credit for it. It's just the way I was designed. So I'm like, okay, cool. One less thing to worry about.
Right.
Um, yeah, but in the moments, having a toddler, for those parents who are watching who have children, I have a 4.5-year-old who he tests my levels of tolerance like no other.
Yeah, he
You
does.
know, I'm just like, there are times when I just totally crack. I'm just like, man, no parent points for me that day. Um, uh, and thank goodness for my wife, who she's very, very good about looking at these things that aren't working and trying to figure out like how to make them work better.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been really great in doing the research, I think. And not to go totally off topic, I think this is another skill set that women have that men generally don't have. I would say like 80% of the time women are just so much better at nurturing children.
Mm-hmm.
Like they also have this tolerance for them that I'm always like, oh my gosh, that's how are you staying sane in this moment? Um,
Yeah.
and so she is like, and she's also like a mama bear when it comes to making sure that he's healthy. So she's done lots of research in figuring out like different approaches to the madness that is a 4.5-year-old toddler, and how to,
Right.
what are the strategies that we need to have as a parent to be able to manage that.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I can calm myself down, and it typically is. It's usually pretty quick. If I have to step away, that usually means I'm pretty cooked. But I can, in the moment, I'm in the moment. I can breathe. So I think
Uh-huh.
breath in general is fantastic
Mm-hmm.
to be able to stop, breathe, be in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and being in that moment and that place between what just happened and what's going to happen um, helps reset my system very quickly.
Well, I just
And
watched you do it for the people that are watching on video.
yes,
It was really it was really subtle, but I just
yeah,
watched you shift it. It was really
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
what were
it's
you doing in that moment? What are you envisioning? Can you share a little bit what just happened?
um, yes, it's a quieting of the mind,
Okay.
and it's very much just not even thinking of anything. Like if you can, and that takes practice. It definitely is not something that I've always been able to do. But I have gotten really good at literally taking just a moment, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? It's
Okay.
like there's nothing happening in that moment. Time disappears. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not even like I'm totally still in my mind.
So are you just like imagining the thoughts going out of your head through your ears? Like, is there anything happening in your in that regard?
It used to be that way. Yeah, I used to have to imagine. I studied a little bit of Buddhism, and one really fun practice was to imagine thoughts like the clouds in the sky
Yeah.
and just see them passing by. And so, not giving them any attachment or any feeling, just watching them go by and just being like, oh, those are just the clouds. So my
Yeah.
thoughts they're just clouds. They're just going by. I don't, I don't need to think about them, give them any thought, worry about anything. If I would cease to exist in this moment, that would be just fine because
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing past this very moment.
Mm-hmm.
And my breathing slows down quickly, and
Nostril
it's
breathing?
not even that, not even that. It's really just like it's an exhale.
Uh-huh. Right, just one breath.
That's it.
Yeah.
You relax your nervous system.
Are you thinking about like let's say you're feeling a tightness in your arm right now, right? Like are you thinking about that relieving or are you
Nope.
doesn't
I'm just
matter?
going, no, it's, if you envision, and I've seen this in a couple of different belief systems. I think the Buddhism and the Buddhists have it, and I've seen it in another system, and even in Lakota, there's a little bit of talk about this, which is, and I've seen it in a deep, and I was in a really deep meditation, and I saw this core energy going from like where my heart is down to my solar plexus, and it almost looks like a vessel
Uh-huh.
of light that's just in this, like this part of my body here.
Yeah.
Um, and that core energy is almost like the very core essence of what I am.
Right.
So I am not Paul. I'm not Kiat Swin. I am not anything in this life.
Right.
Because when I drop this physical body, and I believe in reincarnation, so when I drop this physical body and I go to the stars and I come back, I'm going to be in a whole new body.
Right.
But the one thing that will still be the same is the very core of what I am, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's sort of spiritual soul in Lakota. There's four parts of a soul, but there's one particular piece that always stays the same in terms
Mm-hmm.
of like going with you from one life to the next. It does evolve, but for the most part, that's what we really are in
Yeah.
essence. And so that's also a place that I go to when I'm becoming very still and very quiet and
Mm.
resetting myself.
Okay.
And then I just take the breath, and I suppose having done it enough times, there's this beautiful magical place that I go to within a second, and everything just resets. Like
Uh-huh.
whatever anger I had, whatever upset I had, whatever frustration I had is gone, and I could literally just start fresh again, all anew. like
Well,
as if
that's a
it never
huge
happened.
skill. That's a huge skill that you've seems like you've mastered. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I never thought of it being like as a mastery level, but it, when you speak of it, I guess it really is at the point where it comes becomes almost second nature. It's very, very easy to do for
Right.
me. Yeah.
Right. Well, on medicine, on ayahuasca, or maybe on psychedelics, I I saw that our soul lives here, like right next to the heart,
Mm.
or in the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting because different religious beliefs have different ideas of where the soul actually is,
Mm-hmm.
but it resonates what you were saying, how this area here is where that soul resides, because there is, what is it, like 0.23 grams or something like that leaves the body when somebody dies, and people believe that's the soul, and it's been measured and tested, I don't remember the exact amount, but it's really small, and it's across the board. I-
Yeah, if you've ever been around anything that was living and suddenly dead, you can feel the difference in the physical matter,
oh yeah.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
not just that it's not breathing anymore, but instantly there's like, whoa, there's like it feels empty suddenly.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is
Yeah,
that
it's like
about?
the life force is gone out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I watched one of my dogs when she passed, my first dog. I I was able to see her spirit leave,
Hmm.
and I was there with her, but I was able to have that experience of like, oh, okay, there she goes. And
Hmm.
and it's really interesting, like it's really fascinating if you think about it. How that happens. And yeah, it's a totally different energy afterwards. It's like
Yeah.
it's like an empty shell or a coat that you're holding.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And I think, like, I don't know why it popped in my mind is, there's a lot of people who are afraid of death,
Hmm.
and I've gone through different stages myself of not being afraid of death, of being afraid of death, of it's really interesting in my life how it's fluctuated. There are times where I'm just like, you know what, it's totally fine. I'm good if I die, and there are other times where I'm like, man, I'm just getting started.
Yeah, I know. I
Come
know.
on, give me another 100 years. And
Right.
then, and then there are other times where I'm just like, it's all right, it's okay. Like, uh, I, I'll die and then I'll come back, and it'll just be like this life. Like, I will remember some things and I won't remember other things. I've had like a beautiful experience. I was in a deep meditation. It was a kirtan. It was a kirtan in LA, and there was this guy doing kirtan, and he just had one of my favorite way. My favorite kirtan is really the way it's like traditionally done, where it's repeated, right?
Hmm.
It's that repetition of the chant, and so
Hmm.
there's no variation,
Yeah.
and so the mind just begins for me. The mind just begins to unravel. Like it's just like I can't keep up with this anymore, and it lets go. And I had a moment where I transcended time and I went into a previous life,
Oh yeah.
and I got to see one of my previous lives,
Cool.
and I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing. This
Yeah.
is this is amazing." Like there is some essence, I believe there is some essence of ourselves that we will show in our other bodies, and there's probably glimpses of memories that we will have, but it's almost to our detriment if we have too much of that memory. It's
Yeah.
it's really sort of like better that
Yeah.
we kind of start fresh and being like, okay, how am I going to handle it this time?
Right.
And I hope that for people who are watching and are wondering, is there a life after death, and that that they don't just believe me or you, that they continue on that journey and of discovery, and I really feel like if you continue on that search, you will find that there really is, it really does exist. There's enough, we'll call it science, and there's
Yeah.
enough confirmation from people that there's really something else, and it's pretty amazing. And you can spend your time worrying and being scared, or you could spend your time finding happiness, contentment, joy and just sort of like sucking life out of the life, just
Oh yeah.
really digging your teeth into it and doing everything you can to express yourself fully and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, it's like that saying, like, if this was the last day of your life, how would you spend it? You
Right.
know, and it's like, okay, do I want to spend it just sitting on the couch watching TV? Maybe if it's a really good show, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Or is it creating something, or it's like it can be different for everybody, right? But
Yeah. Right.
um I just wanted to add that there's this really fascinating story that you can look up on YouTube about this little boy that was like 3 or 4 years old, and maybe he was younger, maybe 2 years old, and he was talking, and he was telling his parents how he died in his previous life. And he told him, I was in World War II. I was flying this exact plane. I was in this platoon. I and what was fascinating was those guys that he was in the same platoon with were still alive, and they were meeting for a World War II, gathering, right, of people, of veterans, right? And so he went to it and he talked to those guys, and they confirmed that he was that guy, that he had, like, there was no way this kid could have known these things, right? Like,
Yeah.
he couldn't read, he couldn't look it up, he couldn't, you know what I mean?
Yes.
He just knew that that's how he died in his past lifetime, and that these people, uh,
Wow.
and they confirmed it. And so,
Wow.
yeah, I don't know if you Google around a little bit, you'll find it, but that particular case just was all that my logical mind needed to be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, And I
Yeah.
think the reincarnation piece, once I put that together, it all started to make way more sense to me.
Mm.
Like, I started to understand why with certain people, with certain souls, I felt a really expansive connection. Whereas with other ones, it maybe wasn't like that, with certain relationships, why it could go so deep, others
Mm.
that maybe it couldn't, Um, there's many factors to that. It's like frequency is another big aspect of that, right? Like, I
Mhm.
don't feel like I had the bandwidth and the frequency to go to those depths with certain people at certain times in my life. Like when I was drinking a lot and partying, like I just
Mm.
couldn't hit those higher frequencies because the alcohol was keeping me in a lower frequency.
Mm.
And certain things like that can do it, and but it is very interesting for me to, with curiosity, explore those things, right? And it's also really interesting when those past life regressions happen, right? Like for me, it's happened at Kundalini yoga classes. It's happened at myofascial unwinding
Mm.
sessions and trainings. It's happened in deep meditations. It's happened eye gazing,
Mm.
where with a partner, I would watch her morphing into, with an ex partner, I would watch her morphing into different beings from the past and from the future, like blue alien beings and old ladies and young boys, like really changing completely, and just nothing, just not taking anything, not completely sober, just eye gazing. So it can happen in a lot of different ways. Has it happened in other ways for you?
Um, I'm trying to like that was probably the most poignant one. I don't think I've had it in other instances, but I really appreciate that you've had so many occurrences of that because it's like you and this is one of the things I really am impressed with you about is like your ability to pierce the veil to pierce reality, the visual reality that we have of this world, and to be able to see beyond it, because not very many people can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And taking it back to Sundance, and getting into, like, from day one, our intercessor, our chief, said, when you go in, you're starting your first day, start your prayer right away.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait till the second day or the third day or the fourth day.
Yeah.
You can start your prayer the moment you step into that arbor.
Right.
And that's exactly what I did. And I realized in doing that, you develop that skill set of being able to pierce through um, ordinary reality, and then be able to see these things that are occurring. Um, I've had more experiences, like in shamanic world work with drumming,
Mm-hmm.
um, where I've transcended time and space. So, but I think for people who are wondering, like, how can I do that, or that's not possible, it's really like just practicing it. It's
Mm-hmm.
just doing it, doing it, doing it, doing it, and just trusting that, like, what you're seeing is really happening. Because at first it might be like in shades of gray,
Right.
right? You might just be like seeing silhouettes of things, or you might get a snapshot of a previous life where you're like,
Right.
whoa, what was that? Oh,
Right.
that's nothing, right? Right.
Right.
And so instead of saying, well, that was nothing, just say, oh, that was something. Okay. And then just trusting that every time you go into your practice, it'll become a more and more um, fuller colored experience, to the point like what you're seeing, which is you're seeing the person outside of you morphing, that's pretty cool.
Right.
I
Right.
don't think I've seen anybody morph yet. That's pretty. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
Yeah. It was far out. It was far out. Yeah. I mean, I think that, I think that it is a muscle, like you said, and it can happen to anybody at any time, really. You know, it's like you gotta the for me the goal uh, of being a better man is also elevating in frequency, right? Like there's gonna be times when my frequency is gonna drop. I might be really sad about something, right? But I fully experience and feel through that, and then I go back to raising it up, and it's kind of like, waves, right? It's like, okay, today I'm feeling this way. I move through it and then start to build it back up again. And I think about, like your son and his generation, and how those kids may potentially be able to stay in that frequency all the time, right? Because for me, it's like I'll get glimpses of it. I'll go in and out of it here and there, but then for that generation, it's like they can hold it and be in that, and then their kids may be even like fully in it. So it's like I believe that that's kind of how the evolution is happening. It's like our offspring are the ones that are coming after us are able to use the genetics that we have and then amplify it even more.
Yes, it's an evolution of yeah. I believe, like, what you're describing is that the of what we, our capacity of human beings, and what our capacity is as human beings, and for
Yeah.
sure, like, we pass on through our DNA these things. Just like you probably, like, heard the experiment of done on mice, where they took a group of mice, and they had corn that they would feed them, and the corn would make them sick, and so they would eat the corn, and then they would get sick, and then those mice had babies, and those babies would avoid that particular corn, and it's like, how do they know to avoid that corn? Like, they've never had it. How
Right.
would they know, right? And I think that's saying it's something similar that happens in with humanity, that we're passing something on, and and that is one of the values of the Lakota, is to recognize and to acknowledge the generations. So we're acknowledging not just our ancestors, but we're also acknowledging the future. And so the
Mhm.
things that I do as a man, I have to consider how that might affect the generations after me, and not
Mhm.
just my own child, but from a community standpoint, how do the children around me are affected by how I am and what I do and what I say.
Yeah.
And so that's also a place where we can step up as men, is really look at like how do we speak to the children around us,
Hmm.
and how we're like it's not even just that as our perception, our our state of mind affects them. So our us seeing them as a valued member of our humanity, of carrying on what we are, I believe they pick that up. They
Oh yeah.
sense that we look at them and we're like, you are an important being. You are going to carry on, um, our beliefs, our values, our morals, our standards, and then you're going to be teaching that. Like I tell my son, one day you're gonna teach your son what I'm teaching you about Sundance or
Hmm.
about drumming, and
Yeah.
he's like, oh, okay, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
in his 4.5-year-old way, like, yes,
Right.
I know that, Dad.
Right. Right. Yeah, your son is really tapped in, man. I love that kid so much. He's very connected to all the things, and having parents like you, yourself, and Jen is amazing. So yeah, man, I'm really excited to see what he brings into this world too as he gets a little bit older, and what he's aligned with, which is super exciting and interesting as well.
Yeah, definitely. Those people who talk about how children are here to be our teachers,
Yeah.
I think like that's how they're being our teachers, is they're asking of us, they're asking of us to look at ourselves and look at how we need to learn about what we need to learn about ourselves. And so in that way, that's a teacher, right? They're like
Yeah.
a teacher oftentimes takes a Socratic method, of asking the question, as opposed to saying, do it this way. It's more like, well, how do you think you should do it? How is
Hmm.
that done? Why do we do it that way? And then we need to really ask ourselves, like, yeah, why are we doing this way?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Oh, okay. I guess I need to study up a little bit more so that I can give you an answer of like, we do it this way for this reason.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Paul, it's been such an honor to have you on the podcast. I feel like we just broke the surface here, as you know, as expected. With we could keep going for a couple more hours easy. So, I'd love to open the invitation for whenever you want to come back on. Love to. You're always invited on. So, it's been such an honor to talk with you, and thank you for sharing your teachings and your stories and ways with us. So until next time, brother,
Yeah. Until next time. Toksha. Okay. Thank you so much, Peter.
take care.